This is a book about government, and more particularly about government in the United States. Why should you read it? Why should you study government? These are legitimate questions that can be answered in several different ways, as you will see throughout the pages of this book. But for now, consider this response. You should know as much as you possibly can about government, because government affects you in an uncountable number of very important ways. It does so today, it does so yesterday, and it will do so every day for the rest of your life. Think of the point in this light. What would your life be like without government? Who would protect you and all the rest of us against terrorist attacks, against other threats from abroad? Who would provide for education, guard the public's health, and protect the environment? Who would pave the streets, regulate traffic, punish criminals, and respond to fires and other human-made and natural disasters? Who would protect civil rights and care for the elderly, the poor, and those who cannot care for themselves? Who would protect consumers and property owners? Government does all these things, of course, and much more. In short, if government did not exist, we would have to invent it. What is government? Government is the institution through which a society makes and enforces its public policies. Government is made up of those people who exercise its power, all those who have authority and control over people. The public policies is a government are, in short, all those things in a government decides to do. Public policies cover matters ranging from taxation, defense, education, crime, and healthcare to transportation, the environment, civil rights, and working conditions. Indeed, the list of public policies issues handled by the government is nearly endless. Government must have power in order to make and carry out public policies. Power is the ability to command and prevent action, the ability to achieve a desired end. Every government has and exercises three basic kinds of power. Legislative power, the power to make laws and to frame public policies. Executive power, the power to execute, enforce, and administer laws. And judicial power, the power to interpret laws, to determine their meaning, and to settle disputes that arise within the society. These powers of government are often outlined in a country's constitution. A constitution is the body of fundamental laws setting out the principles, structures, and processes of a government. The ultimate responsibility for the exercise of these powers may be held by a single person or by a small group, as in a dictatorship. In this form of government, those who rule cannot be held responsible to the will of the people. When the responsibility for the exercise of these powers rests with the majority of the people, that form of government is known as a democracy. In a democracy, supreme authority rests with the people. Government is among the oldest of all human inventions. Its origins are lost in the mists of time, but clearly, government first appeared when human beings realized that they could not survive without some way to regulate their own actions, as well as those of their neighbors. The earliest known evidence of government date from ancient Egypt and the 6th century BC. More than 2,300 years ago, the Greek philosopher Aristotle observed that man is by nature a political animal. When he wrote those words, Aristotle was only recording a fact that even then had been obvious for thousands of years. What did Aristotle mean by political? That is to say, what is politics? Although some people often equate the two, politics and government are very different things. Politics is a process, while government is an institution. More specifically, politics is the process by which a society decides how power and resources will be distributed within that society. Politics enables a society to decide who will reap the benefits and who will pay the costs of its public policies. The word politics is sometimes used in a way that suggests that it is somehow immoral or something to be avoided. But again, politics is the means by which government is conducted. It is neither good nor bad, but it is necessary. Indeed, it is impossible to conceive a government without politics. The state. Over the course of human history, the state has emerged as the dominant political unit throughout the world. The state can be defined as a body of people living in a defined territory, organized politically, that is, with a government, and with the power to make and enforce law without the consent of any higher authority. There are more than 200 states in the world today. They vary greatly in size, military power, natural resources, and economic importance. Still, each of them possesses all four of the characteristics of a state. That is, each of them has population, territory, sovereignty, and government. Note that the word state describes a legal entity. In popular usage, a state is often called a nation or a country. In a strict sense, however, the word nation is an ethnic term, referring to races or other large groups of people. The word country is a geographic term, referring to a particular place, region, or area of land. Population. Clearly, a state must have people, a population. The size of that population, however, has nothing directly to do with the existence of a state. One of the world's smallest states in population terms is San Marino. Bound in all sides by Italy, it has only some 30,000 people. The People's Republic of China is the world's most populous state, with more than 1.3 billion people, just about 1/5 of all the world's population. The more than 300 million people who live in the United States make it the world's third most populous state, after China and India. The people who make up the state may or may not be homogeneous. The adjective homogeneous describes members of a group who share customs, a common language, and ethnic background. Today, the population of the United States includes people from a wide variety of backgrounds. Still, most Americans think of themselves as exactly that, Americans. Territory. Just as a state cannot exist without people, so it must have land, territory with known and recognized boundaries. The states in today's world vary as widely in terms of territory as they do in population. Here, too, San Marino ranks among the world's smallest states. It covers less than 24 square miles, and so is smaller than thousands of cities and towns in the United States. The United States also recognizes the state of Vatican City, which is completely surrounded by the city of Rome. It has a permanent population of less than 900 and an area of only 109 acres. Russia, the world's largest state, stretches across some 6.6 million square miles. The total area of the United States is slightly less than 3.8 million square miles. Sovereignty. Every state is sovereign. That is, it has supreme and absolute power within its own territory and can decide its own foreign and domestic policies. It is neither subordinate nor responsible to any other authority. Sovereignty is one of the characteristics that distinguishes the state from all other lesser political units in the world. Thus, as a sovereign state, the United States can determine its form of government, frame its own economic system, and shape its own foreign policies. The states within the United States are not sovereign and are not states in the international legal sense. Each state is a subordinate of the Constitution of the United States. Government. Every state is politically organized. That is, every state has a government. Recall, a government is the institution through which society makes and enforces its public policies. A government is the agency through which the state exerts its wills and works to accomplish its goals. Government includes the machinery and personnel by which the state is ruled. Government is necessary to avoid what the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, 1588 to 1679, called the war of every man against every man. Without government, said Hobbes, there could be a continual fear and danger of violent death, and the life of man would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. The world has seen a number of examples over recent years of what happens when a government disappears. In Lebanon, Bosnia, Somalia, and many other places, life became nasty, brutish, and short. Origin of the state. For centuries, historians, philosophers, and others have pondered the questions of the origin of the state. What set of circumstances first brought it into being? Over time, many different answers have been offered, but history provides no conclusive evidence to support any of them. However, 4 theories have emerged of the most widely accepted explanations of the origin of the state. The force theory. Many scholars have long believed that the state was born of force. They hold that one person or a small group claimed control over an area and forced all within it to submit to that person's or group's rule. When the rule was established, all the basic elements of the state, population, territory, sovereignty, and government, were present. The evolutionary theory. Others claim that the state developed naturally out of the early family. They hold that the primitive family, of which one person was the head and thus the government, was the first stage in political development. Over countless centuries, the original family became a network of related families, a clan. In time, the clan became a tribe. When the tribe first turned to agriculture and gave up its nomadic wandering ways, tying itself to the land, the state was born. The divine right theory. The theory of divine right was widely accepted in much of the Western world for the 15th through the 18th centuries. It held that God created the state and that God had given those of royal birth a divine right to rule. The people were bound to obey their rules as they would God. Opposition to the divine right of kings was both treason and a mortal sin. During the 17th century, philosophers began to question this theory. Much of the thought upon which present-day democracies rest began as a challenge to the theory of divine right. The notion of divine right was not unique to European history. The rulers of many ancient civilizations, including the Chinese, Egyptian, Aztec, and Mayan civilizations, were held to be gods or to have been chosen by the gods. The Japanese emperor, the Mikado, governed by divine rights until 1945. The social contract theory. In terms of the American political system, the most significant of the theories of the origin of the state is that of the social contract. Philosophers such as Thomas Hobbes, James Harrington, John Locke in England, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau in France developed this theory in the 17th and 18th centuries. Hobbes wrote that in the earliest history, humans lived in unbridled freedom, and that is in a state of nature in which no government existed and no person was subject to any superior power. That which people could take by force belonged to them. However, all people were similarly free in the state of nature. No authority existed to protect one person from the aggressive actions of another. Thus, individuals were only as secure as their own physical strength and intelligence could make them. Human beings overcame their unpleasant conditions, says the social contract theory, by agreeing with one another to create a state. By contract, people within a given area agreed to give up to the state as much power as was needed to promote the safety and well-being of all. In the contract, that is, through a constitution, the members of the state created a government to exercise the powers they had voluntarily given to the state. In short, the social contract argues that the state arose out of the voluntary act of free people. It holds that the state exists only to serve the will of the people, that they are the sole source of political power, and that they are free to give or to withhold that power as they choose from the government. The theory may seem somewhat far-fetched today. The great concepts that this theory promoted, however, popular sovereignty, limited government, and individual rights, were immensely important to the shaping of the American governmental system. The Declaration of Independence justified its revolution through the social contract theory, arguing that King George III and his ministers had violated the contract. Thomas Jefferson called the document pure luck. The purpose of government. What does government do? You can find a very meaningful answer to the question in the Constitution of the United States. The American system of government was created to serve the purposes set out there. From the Constitution, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Form a more perfect union. The United States, which had just won its independence from Great Britain, faced an altogether uncertain future in the post-war 1780s. In 1781, the Articles of Confederation, the nation's first constitution, created a firm league of friendship among the 13 states. That league soon proved to be neither firm nor very friendly. The government created by the Articles was powerless to overcome the intense rivalries and jealousies among the states that marked the times. The Constitution of today was written in 1787. The original states adopted it in order to link themselves and the American people more closely. The Constitution was built in belief that in union there is strength. Establish justice. To provide justice, said Thomas Jefferson, is the most sacred of the duties of government. No purpose, no goal of public policy can be of greater importance in a democracy. But what is justice? The term is difficult to define, for justice is a concept, an idea, an invention of the human mind. Like other concepts such as truth, liberty, and fairness, justice means what people want it to mean. As the concept of justice has developed over time in American thought and practice, it has come to mean this. The law, in both its content and its administration, must be reasonably fair and impartial. Those standards of justice have not always been met in this country. We have not attained our professed goal of equal justice for all. However, this must be said, the history of this country can be told largely in terms of our continuing attempts to reach that goal. Injustice anywhere, said Martin Luther King Jr., is a threat to justice everywhere. You will encounter this idea again and again in this book. Ensure domestic tranquility. Order is essential to the well-being of any society, and keeping the peace at home has always been a prime function of government. Most people can only imagine what it would be like to live in a state of anarchy, without government, law, or order. In fact, people do live that way in some parts of the world today. For years now, Somalia, located on the eastern tip of Africa, has not had a permanent functioning government, rival warlords controlling different parts of the country. In the Federalist number 51, James Madison observed, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary." Madison, who was perhaps the most thoughtful of the framers of the Constitution, knew that most human beings fall short of that standard. Provide for the common defense. Defending the nation against foreign enemies has also been one of the government's major responsibilities. You can see its importance in the fact that defense is mentioned far more often in the Constitution than any of the other functions of government. The nation's defense and its foreign policies are but two of the same coin. The security of the United States. To provide the security, the nation maintains an Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Departments such as the Department of Homeland Security keep watch for threats of the country and its people. The United States has become the world's most powerful nation, but the world remains a dangerous place. This country must maintain its vigilance and its armed strength. Just a glance at today's newspapers or at one of this evening's television news programs will furnish abundant proof of that fact. Promote the general welfare. Few people realize the extent to which government acts as the servant of its citizens, yet you can see examples everywhere. Public schools are one illustration of government's work to promote the general welfare. So too for its efforts to protect the quality of the air you breathe, the water you drink, and the food you eat. The list of tasks government performs for your benefit goes on and on. Some governmental functions that are common in other countries, operating steel mills, airlines, and coal mines, for example, are not carried out by the government in this country. In general, the services that government provides in the United States are those that benefit all or most people. Many of them are the services that are not very likely to be provided by the voluntary acts of private individuals or groups. Secure the blessings of liberty. This nation was founded by those who loved liberty and prized it above all earthly possessions. They believed with Thomas Jefferson that the God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time. They subscribed to Benjamin Franklin's maxim that they could give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety to deserve neither liberty nor safety. The American dedication to freedom for the individual recognizes that liberty cannot be absolute. It is instead a relative matter. No one can be free to do whatever he or she pleases, for that behavior would interfere with the freedom of others. As Clarence Darrow, the great defense lawyer, once said, "You can only be free if I am free." Both the federal constitution and the state constitutions set out many guarantees of rights and liberties for the individual in this country. That does not mean that those guarantees are so firmly established that they exist forever, however. To preserve and protect them, each generation must learn and understand them anew and be willing to stand up for them when necessary. For many people, the inspiration to protect our rights and liberties arises from deep feelings of patriotism. Patriotism is the love of one's country, the passion that drives one to serve one's country, either by defending it from invasion or by protecting its rights and maintaining its laws and institutions. Patriotism is the defining characteristic of a good citizen, the noblest passion that animates a man or a woman in the character of a good citizen. As a good citizen, you too must agree with Thomas Jefferson. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And that is section 1. Congratulations on making it this far. I hope you all do great on the assessment, and have a good day.